We'll start off with giving us your name.
I'm William, William Vanderkamp.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. I had a good day at work, went for a run, feeling super tired, but it's the good kind of tired.
So, you've been, in California, how long? A year
About
and...
a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half here. Moved from Canada in 2022.
So, in your time of being in California so far, how have you been liking it?
I mean, I really like it. I've never experienced this idea of like the weather always being nice. That's cool. Got a couple of big cities right nearby. Lots of really interesting things to do. Feels like I'm in kind of a happening place.
You still have like so much to explore and experience,
Absolutely,
among other things. So, from your time here, what would you say you've enjoyed the most, or what is your most memorable memory? I would say so far.
I got started with the running club here, Mountain View Area Running Club, very quickly because I wanted to establish friend groups. And so last year, I was able to get on a group for this Ragnar relay, which is basically this like overnight 24-hour relay where you and 7 other people have to run basically like a race nonstop for 24 hours. Like you take turns, but the whole team is someone's always running. That was a really great bonding experience. We did that up in Tahoe.
Damn, 24 hours?
Yeah, you each run 15 and a half miles over the course of the day.
Damn, is it even through the night? Are you all strapped up with flashlights and all that?
Oh yeah,
or?
you got the headlamp. Yeah, it's really badass, if I must say so myself. And my team did finish in the top 10. We had some pretty good times.
Wow. Damn, that's intense.
Yeah, running in the nighttime with all the little headlamps ahead of you, bobbing as you kind of catch up to them and overtake them in the forest. It's kind of like an eerie experience.
I feel like that after a certain amount of time into that run, you would get that runner's high.
Absolutely.
And then just kind of zone out and just keep running. Did you have any music while you were going with that?
No music. I don't run with music. But I did get zoned out, and I actually got really confused at one point because I was kind of watching these back of the headlamps ahead of me always bobbing. And then all of a sudden, like we were going up the mountain, and then I looked up and one of the headlamps was like so high, like way above me. I'm like, what the heck? I'm supposed to go that high? But then I realized it was just a star, but like,
Nice.
It was like, yeah. So I did zone out a lot. But then at some point you're so zoned out, you're going up and up. And then eventually you do hit the top of the mountain and you're kind of in the darkness. You only know you've hit the top because there's suddenly wind coming up the other side at you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
cool.
that sounds like that is a very memorable experience.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, and the whole time I had this blue light in front of me. The others were all white, but this one was blue, and I was just following that light all race, trying to catch up. And right at the very end of the race, I was like right behind that woman, and I almost caught her, but couldn't quite.
I tried a half marathon once, and I barely finished, and that's as far as I'll get with that much running.
This is probably actually easier than a half marathon, so I would encourage people actually not to be too intimidated, and it can be just like a wonderful experience for you and a group of people. You only run 5 miles at a time.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
You
That's
do
not
5
bad.
miles 3 times over the course of 24 hours, and the rest of the time you're just sitting around chilling by the fire, shooting back some brews.
Not really.
Oh, absolutely.
In between runs.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to transition to asking you on how you got into coding.
Yeah, I sort of happened into that. I started university. I kind of thought of myself as a philosopher. I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll try philosophy. And then my dad did physics, so I was doing physics, and so that's how I started, and that was my intention. But then I was kind of lazy, and I didn't sign up for summer jobs fast enough, and so none of the physics labs had any openings. But I applied with the computer science labs because I had just taken my first computer science course, and I actually enjoyed it a lot. And it just so happened they had an opening, even though I'd applied late. And so I basically just followed those opportunities, and those opportunities kept coming. And I realized it was just like fun. And also there were opportunities in the field.
Sounds kind of like fate. Opportunity. Doors opening.
I think, sometimes if you put your ear to the ground and, then that's a good way to go.
From the topic of fate, let's go into what would you say is your definition of success in life?
That's something that I'm always trying to define. And in I think a lot of the time my problem has been that I haven't been very clear about defining what my goals are and what success is. So I've sort of had this vague sense of ambition, or I might have had some like ridiculous goals, like something just like that I want to do. Like I think in high school I wanted to, you know, single-handedly stop climate change or something, you know, like everyone does in high school. But then over time you become more realistic. And now these days, how I define success is in terms of more medium-term goals. I want to live a steady life with good routines. I want to have a successful relationship, and I want to get a promotion at work.
Nice. Okay.
And I want to have fun along the way with all my friends. That's what I would define as a successful life for me right now, but that'll change.
What do you think makes it change over time?
I mean, some people have these really intense long-term goals. Like, you know, some people know they're going to be an astronaut and they just work towards it. So maybe they don't change their goals. But so what changes it is, I guess, like everyone has something deep down that's driving them, and they might not know how to translate that into real world goals. So that's kind of like me. Like I have sort of deep instincts, but I don't always know what that means in the real world. So that's going to change as I, you know, follow my gut.
Would you say that a lot of the things that you're saying right now are your definition of success you currently have?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you say you're working towards your promotion. You're in a good job. You do outings with friends, that long 5-mile run in between with drinks in between.
Mm-hmm. Like those are, you know, elements of success, but other things, you know, I haven't achieved yet also that I'm kind of striving towards. So
aside from that, do you have any other things that are your definition of success? So it's mostly good relationship, routine, promotion at your job, and
those are the
spending time with
medium-term
friends.
goals. I mean, like, you know, obviously, and then the long term it gets more vague, but I mean, I do want to, you know, everyone's kind of got this feeling of wanting to have that growth mindset and wanting to really achieve something. I guess for me, it's like, you know, I do want to have an impact. I do want to set high goals for my career. I'm not sure exactly what those look like right now. Right now, I'm kind of in learning mode. You know, I've been in the States for 1.5 years, but I do believe I can, you know, continue to progress. Not really a great answer, I guess, but
No, it makes sense.
I guess my point is that sometimes the long-term goals that you set that are rigid or maybe even too vague, they may not get you very far. So for now, I'm focusing on the medium-term goals because that is something that is more well-defined and won't drive you crazy.
Yeah, I feel like the medium-term goals are more manageable versus the long-term. Because the long term, if you're not progressing on them, if it's such a big goal, and even though you've made progress to it, you're going to feel like you're not even getting close. Now, if you have the medium term goal, let's say, for example, your job promotion, you know, whatever the length or the time it takes to get there, it's in the near future versus, hey, I want to own 10 businesses or something like that.
Yeah, I guess everything I mentioned as my goals are sort of achievable within a year, you know, and that's kind of how I'm operating right now.
In your definition of success, what are challenges that you face to make sure that you're on that path to your definition of success, or you stay on the path to your definition of success?
Well, I mean, I've faced challenges a lot in the sense that I've always been, you know, like I said, I've had these sort of more vague, kind of grander ambitions, and over my life, I've kind of matured a little and kind of dialed those down. But my challenge has been to sort of learn about, you know, accomplishing the little things first, and maybe not like, you know, and maybe just not being so intense all the time and just following the normal kind of just like participating in society and in the way that people normally do things can be a wise way to go, because, you know, if everyone's doing it, it might be a good way to live, you know, as opposed to, I've kind of been on the outside a lot. Like I kind of grew up on the outside in the sense that my parents were immigrants and I was kind of like in a weird family that was on the outside. And so I've always been sort of on the outside looking in at all these other people at school and never quite fitting in. So I've had that sort of like chip on my shoulder. And that means that I've had these sort of like, I've kind of avoided taking the normal path. And so, as a replacement for taking the normal path, you know, like maybe going away to college and doing all the normal college stuff, I kind of came up with like, different kind of vague ambitions that didn't really make sense. And that was kind of maybe not very smart. So I guess like the challenge, that was like a challenge to overcome, was to realize, oh, actually I should just take things a little easier.
What approaches do you take in order to overcome those challenges?
Just try to, take things day to day instead of looking at things, instead of catastrophizing. Well, just if you get wrapped up in these things that are a long ways off that you haven't been able to do yet and you don't think you're capable of right now, or some great failure that you don't even know how you're going to come back from, then you just get lost in your own head. So you just like turn it into a catastrophe. But if you just kind of learn to take things a little slower, take things a little more chill, just be a little more normal, just accept kind of the way things are and just kind of live life in a normal way and follow the advice of kind of, people who are, just living kind of a well-balanced life, then that can be good.
Would you say that kind of ties in with like how they say, do the best that you can with the cards that you were dealt?
Do the best that you can with the cards you were dealt, and maybe just don't worry too much. Like if you find yourself getting in your own head, like I'm someone who gets in my own head. So if you find yourself getting in your own head, instead of thinking more, just, just do normal things. Go do your chores, go for a walk.
That's a good point. I feel, so for me earlier this year, earlier this year, when I lived alone, I would get into those moments of just like a rabbit hole, like deeper and deeper into your head, and it'd be hard to pull yourself out. And then I started doing those just day-to-day things. Make sure to go to a grocery store, go for a walk, do just random things to not fall into that loop and stay in my head. And it did help. I feel like another thing that for me has helped is spending time with other people socially. Absolutely. I guess for me personally, I feel like having a social life or making sure I'm having conversations with people, even if it's just like, hey, how's your day going? Oh, this and that. Just little small talk, I feel doesn't let me fall into that rabbit hole of just thought after thought and thinking too much, as you were saying. Instead, I could just be doing regular things, come through, do what I got to do in the kitchen, make food, say hello, and then that's it. No time in my head to go into my head. I mean, there's still little moments, but not like when I wasn't surrounded by people. That's at least something that I realized. And then just for me on that one, I would just be like into rabbit hole, and I would try to pull myself out. I'm like, nope, sink deeper. For some reason, I would think more. And as you said, I would think more and think more and think more. And I couldn't pull myself out till over time, I kind of did different things to make sure I didn't fall into those traps. Take my ass to sleep. That was one. Be like, oh, if I'm thinking too much, go to sleep. Wake up the next morning. I should feel a little better.
I totally agree with you. I mean, we're all human. And humans, we're all pretty much the same. And we've been living a certain way through all of history. And that is, you get up when the sun comes up, you talk with your friends, you do your chores, you go down to the marketplace and buy a gallon of milk, something like that.
Yeah, regular things.
Like this is all stuff that we've been doing for millennia. So, I think we probably like a clue into these sort of rhythms. We're probably like deeply aware of some of these rhythms. And if you start following those rhythms, you might calm down.
I feel like that's accurate.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm just sort of, I'm pretty tired right now. Like I just came back from a run, so I'm kind of rambling.
Yeah. So from those things that you do, you say do the normal things to get your mind away from thinking too much. How would you say your life is different from making sure you do the normal things to stay away from thinking too much than if you were just thinking too much? What's the difference in your life?
Well, I think I'm still working on achieving that difference, to be honest. It's always something I got to work on every day. But I would say, nevertheless, when I do that properly, what's different in my life is that I'm less irritable. I feel like I can take on challenges more. I'm less likely to just be afraid of all these things that could go wrong. I'm less likely to get angry, if I do all that kind of normal routine stuff.
So I want to pivot and touch base on work, on your day-to-day work. You work a corporate job. How is your life in that? Do you ever face imposter syndrome or some kind of self-doubt with work? Because how many years of experience do you have now as a software engineer?
About 7 years since I started working as a software engineer.
So with 7 years of experience, as I mentioned, you have your corporate job. Do you ever face imposter syndrome or self-doubt throughout your...
Of course. And I mean, one thing to bear in mind is that, while I've been here for 7 years, I actually only moved here to the Silicon Valley a year and a half ago. So that was sort of, a humbling experience. And so, of course, I've had imposter syndrome, just like many people would. So yeah, yes. Was that the question? Have I had it? Yes.
Have you had it, or do you still have it right now? Do you ever have cases where it creeps up on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever there are a lot of really impressive people in your workplace sometimes who you look up to. And, if you ever feel like you aren't able to execute on a task, there's always two roads you can take. You can either kind of do the right thing and sort of accept that you are where you are and try to, incrementally like break it down, ask for help, like just talk about it, take things kind of slow, kind of chill out a little and understand that you're only human like everybody else. Or you can kind of, get a little bit afraid that you're not good enough. You can get afraid that you're not going to succeed at the task. Then instead of asking for help, you're worried that you'll look bad. So you kind of actually you narrow your mind even more, and you ask for less help, and you kind of hunch over your computer and just start banging your head against it, and then that can be a problem. So yeah, I mean, of course, I think everyone encounters that kind of situation all the time where you feel like you're not quite up to a task. I mean, if you don't encounter that, then maybe you're not trying, maybe you're not trying hard enough. Like maybe you need to seek out a new challenge, because it's important to, be uncomfortable.
So you would say that if you're not feeling uncomfortable, you're not being challenged and you're not growing.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you feel that imposter syndrome to overcome it?
Well, I'm not perfect. And so sometimes I don't deal with it all that well, but, sometimes what I do is I just try to work harder. Actually, I do that a lot, and that can be successful up to a point, but working harder isn't the same thing as working effectively. And sometimes working harder just means like what I mentioned before, where you kind of like go into this hole, you dig yourself into this hole, and you're digging really hard and you're working really hard, but you're just digging a hole. Yeah. How do you overcome it? By talking to people and realizing that maybe your team lead, who's like, way more experienced than you, actually understands where you're coming from. And, and just like, as soon as you make that connection, you realize that everyone's kind of human and people understand. And if someone isn't very understanding, then maybe they're just a jerk. And then you got to deal with that. But then you got to have a really strong sense of self. Then in those cases, if you're in that kind of workplace. But yeah, luckily I'm in a workplace where people are understanding. So yeah, I think talking to people, breaking things down, trying to go back to your routines, going to the gym for a bit, getting good sleep. Yeah,
that's key.
All that stuff that I'm still working on. I think everyone's always still working on.
In your road to your definition of success and in your workspace, based on all your experiences, what tips or words of wisdom would you give people that are in their path to their definition of success and are in the software industry? Any final words that you would just give that you think have helped you a lot?
For someone who's like really like me, then you're kind of feeling like a bit of an outsider and you've kind of got this sort of chip on your shoulder. I would just say try to avoid that and try to lean into, going into the normal paths of success and careers and friendships and socializing. And actually those can be a good way to go. So that's speaking to the people who are kind of like feeling like an outsider. It's okay to feel that way, but maybe don't be afraid to just kind of chill out about that. But then so not speaking to those people, but speaking to like software engineers. Yeah, I mean, hard work is important, obviously, but also just, I guess the theme I've been talking about is kind of just chilling out and trying to keep things simple. And you always got to have that growth mindset, but part of that is to keep keep succeeding on the simple tasks before you try to succeed on the complicated ones. Don't expect it to happen overnight, but if you want to get a job in big tech or whatever, then it doesn't hurt to study for several months.
That's accurate. That's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, man. Well, thank you so much for speaking all these wise words, even after your long day that you had.
Yeah, I hope I made some sense. Yeah, thanks so much. I'm enjoying it.
Appreciate it. Thanks.